I think now we can go ahead and get started. I'm sure people are still making their way, but in this weather, that could take a while. And the more I think about the weather today, Michelle's face keeps popping into my mind. She's either laughing or reminding us this is way too much for her. So this is a perfect start to the event. I would like to welcome everybody today. My name is Paul DiBiase. My relationship with Michelle, I am an alumni of Bishop Lynch, as a lot of the Melancons are. I worked with Michelle, and I loved Michelle. She was, we'll talk more about her here in a minute, but I always felt an attachment to her. I don't know if it was reciprocal all the time. We had disagreements on things, but I'm glad the family asked me to do this, and I'm appreciative of it. I would like to introduce and welcome some of the family. Michelle's mother, Wanda Melanson. Michelle's father, Joseph Melanson. Her husband, Patrick Dunkins. Patrick's father, Willie Dunkins. And of course, all the siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers and sisters. The extended family in attendance. And of course, all of us who felt somehow we were part of Michelle's family by just knowing her and being with her. If you guys want to wave to the crowd, that'd be fantastic. They're all up front. Okay. Before I introduce Chris Rebuck, we're going to go through today's celebration of life, and it is exactly that. It is a celebration of life. Those of us who knew Michelle, whether you were a student, a fellow employee, a family member, she was full of life. I'm going to tell a very brief little story. It happened between me and Michelle last year. I had a list of faculty to talk to go speak to about, just their feelings on Bishop Lynch. And as I looked at the list, the first name that popped out was Michelle's name. And I said, I'm going to Michelle first, because I knew Michelle would tell me the truth, the absolute truth, whether I liked it or not. She would tell me the truth. She never did it with malice. There was no anger behind it, but she would tell you exactly how she feels. And I think that is one valuable trait to have, especially when you consider someone a friend, is that they will tell you the absolute truth. I interrupted her off period during school, and I expected to talk for about 10 minutes, and we were there for about an hour and 15. When I left, I was energized. That's the power that she had. I went there to find out how she felt, and she flipped it on me and found out how I felt and what we had in common, and it was just a great event. I even ran down to my wife's classroom, who is also an English teacher here, and told her. I said, I just had the best hour and 15 minutes of my time here at Bishop Lynch talking to Michelle. That's how she was. My wife felt the exact same way about her. She's someone you could trust, someone you could understand, and someone who understood you. Okay, so that's who I am. That was my relationship with Michelle, and my wife's as well. Right now, we're going to have a moment of inspiration. Chris Rebuck is going to come up and give us his talk.
Thank you, Paul. It's my great honor and privilege to be with you today, the family. My name is Chris Rebuck. I'm the president here at Bishop Lynch High School. And it is truly a day to celebrate Michelle, and it's great to see so many people out here wearing pink in her honor. And, in our beliefs, we feel strongly that she is here with us today. And so I thought that it would be great to share a little bit of my experience of Michelle being here at the school. When I first came to Bishop Lynch, I was in the role of Dean of Students, and so I was the disciplinarian for the school. And Michelle's classroom is in the same place it is today, but it was structured differently. The door was on the other side of the room, and there was a little alcove that actually connected her classroom with the classroom next to hers, which was Rose Persinger's. And so there was almost like a little hiding space, so that as you were walking down the hallway, you could kind of step in but not go into the classroom, and then you could peek into those two rooms back and forth. And so as I did many a day as the disciplinarian of the school, I would walk the halls and listen in on the classes at times I would peek in just to kind of say hello and to see what was going on in the classroom that day. So on this particular day, as I was making my rounds, I heard a lot of noise coming from Michelle's classroom. And it sounded like there was some type of WWE wrestling match going on inside. I mean, legitimately, I thought people were being thrown against the walls and whatnot. And she used to joke with me about the good old days in schools when you could do wall-to-wall counseling. So I had to open the door to find out what was going on. And she, at the time, had this great review game that she did with her students before a quiz or a test, where she had like this little koosh ball. It was like this little ball, but it had like a bunch of rubber bands all over it. And so they would be in teams, and you would have to challenge another team to answer the next question by throwing the ball to them. And of course, as Michelle did in her classes, she had pretty much the full spectrum of learners in that room all at one time. So you had kids from all walks of life, from the choir, from soccer, from football, from the bass fishing club, whatever it was a very diverse classroom. And so kids are diving to catch the ball and throwing it back and forth. And they were just really engaged. And I stopped back a few days later to find out how that particular class had done on their quiz. And she said, horrible. So I thought that she had unlocked some kinesthetic learning miracle, and that these kids who were not going to do well, it was going to like really sink in this mythology that she was teaching them, but to no avail. So I will say that I did enjoy talking with Michelle. She was a huge movie buff, and she and I shared the love of one Matrix series of movies. And so she had this great movie poster of Orpheus, which is one of the characters from the movie The Matrix. And in the film, he offers Keanu Reeves a blue pill or a red pill to start his journey into the Matrix. And so we often had all these just kind of oddly geeky movie conversations about the Matrix. And then the Twilight series came out. And I found out that she had just this deep love and desire for vampires, which I wasn't creeped out by. But she was a huge Twilight fan, and I knew that she was a vampire fan. And so I would often tease her and tell her I was Team Jacob, which was the werewolf character, not the vampire character. But it was great to always have something to stop and to tease her about. And on a more serious note, to kind of echo what Paul said, she was not a person that would allow you to get away with small talk. So there were often times where, out of courtesy, in the hallway as I was walking to some other appointment or to some other destination, I would say, hey, how's it going? As kind of a rhetorical, hello, goodbye, I'm going to keep going. But she had a way of telling you an honest response of how it was going for her that day, which often stopped me in my tracks, and I would have to kind of pivot and turn around and say, oh, well, tell me a little bit more about how it's really going for you today. But the honest truth in that is that she had such a dry wit, a great sense of humor, that she had a way to kind of really use sarcasm as a weapon to cut you in the right way, if that makes sense. Because she could kind of hook you in with a comment or kind of a snarky reply, and then you got into a deep conversation. And I think that there was really something special about that. And to be where she was for so long, trying to teach mythology to sophomore level high school students, you've got to develop a pretty witty sense of humor, right? Because it's a heavy topic, and it's hard to kind of get through what does that really mean. in our lives today. And so I could count on her for some humorous or sarcastic comment just about every time we interacted with each other. And one of the things in recent years, I've been in this role of president for about three years now, and a lot of my appointments are later into the evenings with meetings and other things. And there's pretty much only one classroom whose lights were still on at 6:30, 7, and 7:30 p.m. on Inadale Hall. And 9 times out of 10, that classroom was going to be Michelle's. She had such a dedication to what she did and to her students that she poured out herself into her work here at Bishop Lynch. And even though she had that same sarcastic humor with her kids, they knew how much that she loved them and how much that she put in to her preparation and her grading and everything that she was going to do to plan the next ultimate football review game that they were going to play in the class. So on this day when we are choosing to celebrate her life, it's fun to be able to think back to some of those interactions that I had and to know with certainty that you can multiply that exponentially and know that if that was just my little lens of her life and how she chose to share it with us, imagine the thousands of students who passed through these halls in the time that she was here from 2002. It's amazing to think about the impact that she has had on those people and on us who are here today to remember her. And so I want to conclude by saying thank you. First and foremost to Patrick, to Mark, to Jill, Janet, to Michelle's mom and dad, and all the family that are here. What an honor it is that you've chosen this place that she spent so much time in to allow us to be with you to celebrate her life. And I want to say thank you to Michelle for sharing so much of herself here at Bishop Lynch and providing a great example and witness to all of us in this day, especially as we remember her life, to not take things for granted and to be thankful and to say what's on your mind to the people who you care the most about. Because it shouldn't take a death for us to say the things that we truly mean to those that we care the most about. And Michelle was not one to hold back. So thank you and God bless.
Okay, like we started out talking about this being a celebration of life, and now it's going to get very Michelle. Now we are going to celebrate, and you're going to be asked to do some things and have some fun and kind of keep her in her thoughts. I would like to introduce and bring up to the stage Jill Melanson, who is going to lead us in the next section of the celebration.
Stand beside me. I had to ask my brother, Coach Mark, and my sister, Janet, to join me up here on stage to share in this moment. I've been so cool up until this point today. The last memory I have of my sister, Michelle, dancing was months ago over at my mom's house. We were acting silly with my nieces, Lexi and Cammie, along with my mom, and I was playing YouTube videos on my phone. Of course, these girls had to show me how to use it. When I started to play Uptown Funk, we all stood up and watched Michelle, who is doing one of her cute little dance moves, and I don't know any of you who've seen it when she gets going like this. And then we began to imitate her dancing like no one was watching. So to honor Michelle, I would like for everyone who is able to stand up and dance to this song with us.
Come on. Stand up.
Key the music.
Woo!
Do we want to stand up front and dance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that was fun to watch. It really was. Both fun and a little sad on some people back there. I watched you. You need to work on it. No, that was fun. That was Michelle. That was good to see, and thank you for participating. We're going to move on and to a testimonial and remembrance portion of the event. We're going to invite you to come up, the family first, and anyone else who would like to say a few things about Michelle. Continuing on, I'm going to kind of lead it off, if that's okay, which I have the mic, so it's okay. I talked in the very beginning about Michelle's ability to tell you exactly how she felt, and it was actually made you feel better about yourself. The second thing that I loved about Michelle, I mentioned my wife works here in the English department. I work here. A lot of people ask us, man, what's it like working with your wife? And the truth is I never see her. I'll go by her room if one of our kids are acting a little silly and to see her, but I really do not see her. Mark and Michelle were together all the time, which tells me, one, my wife wants nothing to do with me because I'm free all day long to be visited. Or two, which I think is the actual case, is there was a bond, an unconditional love between Mark and Michelle that was powerful. And again, you learn from that just by being around it. I would see them eating lunch together every day, walking the halls, out on the soccer fields. It was constant. Again, there was great value in Michelle's ability to tell you how she feels, and I think there was great value to witness that kind of relationship between Mark and Michelle, and for that, I'm incredibly appreciative. Now I'd like to invite the family up if they would like to say a few words. In the audience, if you would like to say something about Michelle, you can line up as well, just right here on these steps, and we'll bring you up when it's your turn. There are going to be probably a lot of people who would like to speak, so make sure you keep your thoughts and points quick. All right? So family would like to come up.
I would like to thank you all for coming here today. 2001, my wife was an accountant, and she decided that she was tired of that. She wanted to do something else with her life. And she pulled me to the side. We talked about it for quite some time. She said she wanted to do her true love, and that was to teach. I thought she was kidding about it, but she was very sincere about it. And like I've done from that moment to this moment, I supported her in her decision. And now I see the fruits of her labor, the sacrifices that she's given. So many of you have now prospered from her in one way or another. And when I look out and I see all of you who are here and those who wish to have come and to show your support and to see all of this love, I mean, it is true love. I am thankful every day that I got to spend time with her, to get a phone call in the middle of the afternoon and say, hey, honey, I'm about to run to lunch, but I just called to say hello, see how you're doing. To always walking out when I'm going to work, the last word I say to her is, and the last word I said to her was, I love you. I want to thank you for all being in her life, because you've given me something special to think about for the rest of mine, that I know it is now possible for one person to touch and affect so many lives from now until forever. Thank you very much for allowing my Michelle in your lives. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here, and thanks for dancing with us. We weren't sure if maybe we would be the only three dancing up here, but thanks for joining us. And many of you who know Michelle personally, you know that she just would have loved that. You know, that would have been her thing. So I'm going to read my remarks because I really want to make sure I get it all in. As far back as I can remember, we called Michelle Doots. I don't know if any of y'all have heard that, but I actually continued to call her Doots into adulthood. I mean, I called her Doots. I also called her Michelle or Mish, but I called her Doots. It wasn't uncommon if we were at a family gathering. She kind of cringed when it was in front of people at Lynch, especially her students. But she let me do that. And then when she married Patrick, we got some cool alliteration out of it. So then she became Doots Dunkins. So that's kind of a cool thing. But I think that would have been a really good pen name, like Novel by Doots Dunkins. That would have been kind of cool, because I think she had always wanted to publish a novel of some sort. Many of you may be surprised to know that Michelle was not comfortable speaking in front of a group when she started teaching 16 and a half years ago. That's absolutely true, and I remember her saying that she was hired to be a teacher because I knew she was terrified of public speaking. But I firmly believe that Michelle was called to teach. She was a master of English, and she wanted to share it with others. Or she just wanted to correct your grammar. I'm not sure which one it was. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. I'm not sure which one it was. Those of you who were her students, she helped you to be a better version of yourself as she was helped by you to be a better version of herself. Through teaching day after day, Mrs. Dunkins overcame her fear of public speaking. And I think many students these days would have no idea that she had that fear when she started teaching those many years ago. So I urge you to think about the lessons that Mrs. Dunkins taught you about grammar, about writing, and even about life. You can even go so far as to say, what would Mrs. Dunkins suggest when you're dealing with many of life's decisions? And you'll know, you'll be very clear when you think about her, because she was very clear in her beliefs. I think we can all attest to that. So as you're thinking about what would Mrs. Dunkins do or what would she suggest, I actually think you'll be very clear about what those decisions might be. And maybe you weren't in Michelle's class. I suspect you'll be able to take some life lessons from today's celebration. But I urge all of you to think of Mrs. Dunkins, Doots Dunkins, if you want a little chuckle, the next time that you're afraid to do something. Because she was very afraid of speaking in front of groups, but she was so dedicated to her craft that she just moved through it anyway. So I urge you to step outside of your comfort zone and go for it. You will become a better version of yourself, and that's what Mrs. Dunkins, Michelle, Doots, whatever you might have called her, would have wanted for you. Thank you.
I'm still at the stage that Michelle was when she first started teaching. This terrifies me. I teach art, and I've been doing it for a long time. And, I have no problem with teaching and sharing things that I know with my students. But to do something like this, I wasn't going to do it, and I decided at the last second that I am her father. I should be able to do this. And I can't tell you how proud I am of all of my children. They have conquered a lot of fears and a lot of problems and things that normally everyone has, and they have come through with flying colors. I am really, really amazed and pleased. And the things that have been said about Michelle so far really heartens me. It warms my heart. I love my kids so much. And Michelle, when she was in her early teens, she kept me on my toes because she could be rough on you. And I was learning to fly ultralight airplanes when she was about 14 or 15. And one day she went out with me to the field to see me fly this little tiny lightweight airplane. And I had such trust in my instructor that I asked Michelle, "Would you like to go up?" She said, "Sure." She's a brave little girl. She got in, buckled up, and they took off, and there are some images that are going to be shown, supposed to be shown, on these two screens of various photographs. And when you see an ultralight on the ground and also up in the sky, that's her. That's her in that plane. She was willing to soar. She was willing to do things that some of us might not want to do that. They think about, that looks dangerous. But she did it with no qualms. She just trusted me. And I love that. I love that. When we went out on a trip to California, and about that same time, her age, we went to the vineyards, the Napa Valley, and we were going to these wine tastings at the different wineries and so forth. And we'd, learn all the techniques of swirling the glass and breathing in the vapors and all that kind of stuff. And I never could remember the terminology. And so after that, even years later, I said, "Michelle, what was that called whenever you would swirl the glass and then you'd breathe in?" She said, "That's called volatilizing the vapors." No. See, okay, now I've got it right in my head. Volatilizing the esters. And so, she was a sharp gal. And she was fun to be around. And I'm getting ready to crash the podium here. Anyway, she was terrific. And I always thought, when this day came for her to check out, I always thought, I'm going to be under the dirt when that happens. I had no idea. I think she had a good life, and I am so pleased that she has touched the lives of so many people. I appreciate my children so much. and this is the first time I've had to do this, and I hope I don't have to do it again. Anyway, I love Michelle. I admired her. I'll always think of her that way. Thank you.
I am Aunt Dale, one of Michelle's mother's sisters. Michelle, we've said your name over and over and over this week, this past 2 weeks. We expect to see you. We expect to hear that boisterous laughter, and we expect to receive that warm hug. Your aunts, your uncles, your cousins. We can't let that life force leave us. Can't let us disappear. Michelle, you'll always be with us. We just won't let you go.
Good afternoon. I don't know if I'm speaking on behalf of the Dunkins family or not, but I am Patrick's youngest sister, Deanne, and I'm not afraid to speak in public. But today, I look at my brother and I'm a little sad for him. So Michelle came into our lives at a kind of difficult point in our lives. And I say that because it was exciting, but it was difficult all at the same time. Thank you, Mark. And our mother, we didn't know what was happening with her health. And later that year, she passed away, but it was a wonderful celebration that summer when Michelle and Patrick got married. And in a lot of ways, especially hearing people speak of Michelle lately, I think she and I may have mirrored more than I realized in terms of us being baby girls and us being set in our ways, possibly. And and then also, I think that in a lot of ways, even though I saw Michelle mostly at holidays and the birth of our children and family reunions, I think that she taught me something about myself, that life is really not about me. And even to this point, because I had tons of pictures I'm like the resident photographer, and I couldn't find any, but I was like, you know what, it's not even about me or, any of that. But I remember years ago when they got married, the traditional way, we're gonna take a ton of pictures, everybody's gonna line up and this and that. Michelle said, no, everybody, let's eat. We're gonna have a big party right now. She was like, forget it. So I will say to this day, I'm like, I hope there's some pictures of the wedding on this video, because the only ones I remember are getting ready and that big family, because she was like, we're all family now, we're going to take a picture and we're going to eat because I'm hungry. I remember that very well, 17 years ago, but I still remember. And then when she got the job at at Eastville, I believe, first, in Dallas Community College. When she first got it, I remember telling her about it, and she got it. And I was like, man, I was hoping to be like an adjunct professor, but hey, Michelle deserves being a teacher because, like you said, she loved teaching and she loved it. And I work at a school, and in a lot of ways, I see how we marry each other there. Her involvement with her students, her coaching, I coach. I mean, we have a lot of similarities, and we both write. And so last week, because I had recently tried to get my children's book together, and last week when she had passed away and I was supposed to sign my contract with my publisher, I told my husband, I said, we gotta do this because, have you seen Michelle's Facebook page? On her Facebook page, I believe it said something about teacher and writer, but not published yet, or something to that effect. So that taught me that, hey, there's no time to lose. If you have something to do it now. And so hopefully through this, in her passing, hopefully we can get something out for her. Hopefully we can publish something for her. We're gonna make that happen. We're gonna make that happen, have her a book so that not yet can be completed. Michelle deserves that. She was an excellent teacher, I see here, and she loved what she did. And she had lots of people who loved her. Even on Labor Day, my daughter, my 5-year-old, I'm like, leave her alone. But Michelle just kept entertaining her. So I'm thankful that you shared her with us. Very thankful, Melanson family. We appreciate you, and thank you for sharing her with my brother and my niece and my nephew. Thank you.
Please allow me to share 3 short, special memories of my sister Michelle, who is 11 years younger than I am, and whom I referred to as, now I had a nickname for her as well. I used to call her Bugaboo, or Boo for short. And don't know that she really liked the nicknames, but she didn't have a choice. Each year, when Bishop Lynch had their state fair day, back then we got an entire day off. Sorry, guys. I would prepare our lunches the night before, pick her up early in the morning, then we would drive to the fair and spend the entire day together. When we ran out of money, which only took a couple of hours, we walked over to Dad's work. Remember when your office was on the fairgrounds, Dad? And we begged for more money. When I graduated Bishop Lynch in 1980, I was so excited to get a brand new typewriter for my graduation gift. It was beautiful. And no, computers were not around back then. Move ahead to the mid-90s when computers were around. I decided to finish my bachelor's degree at UTD College, but was clueless when it came to the computer. I can remember going to Michelle and asking her, okay, now, would you take that Word thing, you know, that document thing, just open it up and put it there so I can see it. I know how to type into it, just get that document up there, because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't understand the workings of the computer. I didn't know where to find anything. And when I finished my paper and printed it, of course, what do you do with Michelle? You hand her your paper and a box of red pens because you know she's going to mark it up. But you know what? I was so lucky to have an English teacher by my side. She was awesome. Before Michelle married Patrick, we shared an apartment together. I had the larger room, not because I was the oldest, but I agreed to pay more money towards the rent. After so many months, she wished she had the larger room, but didn't want to pay more money. Go figure. No. Then she met Patrick, who took her away from me. Darn it, Patrick. But she was so happy, and I was happy for her. In closing, I can truly say that I have no regrets. We danced, we hung out together, and we could share our most private thoughts. The best thing ever is that we could count on each other for anything. I love her so much. And I will miss my baby sister more than you'll ever know. Thank you.
It's going to be hard, but I'll do the best I can. I wrote down, you just thought she would leave us quietly, not Michelle. The downpour is probably her making an exit. My sister and I did everything together. It was funny when we would do family gatherings and we would start talking about Bishop Lynch and the soccer team, and I know that my wife Liz and Janet and Jill and probably even my daughters, I'm sure, were probably thinking, oh God, here we go again, talking about Bishop Lynch and soccer. And I don't think that they truly understood what we were doing. And how close we were. I just, stand here and I look out at you, and because I can, because it's her time. She is now going to watch you and do things for you through my eyes. And I just want to soak it all in because that's what we do. I've got so many kids here that I taught, so many teachers that I love and respect, and we did everything. Faculty meetings, we're sitting together. Heck, even the day after she died, I came that Wednesday because I didn't know what to do. I was looking at my wife, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And she said, just do whatever it is that you feel you should do. And I thought that I would just bring my daughter up here, and, there was a get-together of all the teachers, and I thought, I'm just gonna pop in there just for a minute to see what was going on. And if there's one thing that I've realized since Chris has been president, and that is he just knows the right things to say, the perfect duration, with that smooth voice, and he put me at ease. And once he said the word Michelle, I just kind of busted, and Terry May, who was sitting in front of me, immediately got up and came and held my right arm, and Anna Osborne stood up and held my left arm so that I wouldn't fall, because, boy, I tell you what, I didn't have a whole lot of strength. And then at the end of that, talk, I had found myself sitting in the same seat that I always sit in once a month when we would have a faculty meeting. And I was always there with Michelle. I'd always look at my favorite coach down at the other end, Coach Murillo, and he was sitting next to our salsa people. I don't call them the Spanish, the language, that's the salsa people were to my right. And that was the thing about Michelle, is that she knew how much I loved to dance. God blessed me with rhythm. It's his doing, not mine. That was his grand plan, so I figured, what the heck, I'll just go ahead and learn something, salsa, cumbia, bachata. Some of y'all are going, what is he talking about? Are those people, or? They're all dances, so in case you were wondering. That's one thing about Coach Murillo and I. We teach our classes how to salsa. And granted, it's just the basic steps, but it's just like when I coach soccer. I got to teach them the basics. It's just like when I teach them the shell of an essay, because I knew my sister taught, and I wanted to make that essay more about getting the point across rather than how they did it. I wanted them to make it as simple as possible, my students, to where, they don't spend a lot of time with the intro and spend a lot of time on the conclusion, just make it as simple as possible. And so I whittled it down from what they do in English, and I call it the shell of an essay. And I've been doing this for years and years. And then when I showed my sister that, she goes, wow, I can't remember exactly what she said, but I know that she liked it because it had her name in it. And she wanted to try to get into my brain as often as possible because that was Michelle. But I called it a skeleton of an essay, just a shell, S-H-E-L-L. But I called her Shell, C-H-E-L-L-E. And I also called her Mish. And we spent a lot of time in the lunchroom together talking. And I could remember walking to her room whenever we would find out, whenever Mr. Becker would send out the lunch schedule, and I'm immediately looking at when she had lunch, because I always wanted to have lunch with her. And there would be some times whenever she would have A lunch and I would have C lunch. For some reason, my classes used to always take tests quite often, and I would always say, we got to go early to lunch so that we'll have food in our system, so that we'll have enough, and so we can take a test. Whenever we had B lunch and she had A lunch, I always needed to do a lunch swap with somebody. I'm sure Amy knows what I'm talking about. And other teachers, I'm sure, who have B lunch. I gotta do A lunch because, you know, I had to go have lunch with my sister. I would walk to her room and I would say, "You finna go eat?" And she'd look over at me. I had to give her, 10 or 15 seconds to mull over the fact that it was bad English, and I had to give her time to get uncomfortable. Oh my God, he said fidna. And it got to the point where I was saying, fidna? And she would, in agreement, she would go, fidna. She'd always walk across the classroom, fiddling with her keys, looking for it, and locking her door, and then we'd walk down the hall together. Okay, that's one story, 15 more to go. So, hey, this is my time, so y'all just relax. I'll keep moving in and out of the crying and reminiscing. And in Mass, we sat together right over there, and we would always tell each other we have to model how you need to behave in here. So I told her that we needed to keep our conversation to a minimum. And we would watch all the kids next to us, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. In conferences, we would always do the same, go to the same rooms, get the same stuff from whatever it is that we were doing. We would usually have to go to 3 different, I don't know what they're called, workshops or whatever. We would always pick the same ones. And we would go. We would always try to get as much out of it as we could. We would compare notes, believe it or not, afterwards. And community service, we would, the last community service we did the, what was it called? Right, yeah, feed starving children. And we worked together side by side. Thank goodness they were playing music. Can you guess what we were doing the whole time? With Stephanie and Janie telling us to stay on task, stay on task. And I was thinking, that's all we do is stay on task. We're always on task. We're always getting the job done because we love the people that we work with, and we love the students that we work with, and we had always try to chaperone the same dances. This year she didn't want to do the homecoming dance, and I was like, you don't want to chaperone the homecoming dance. Lexi's going to be there. We have to keep our eye on her. For those of y'all who don't know who Lexi is, that's my daughter right over here. I promise you, she is another Michelle. Yeah. Yeah. Cameron's right behind her. But we would chaperone dances together, and as soon as that music hit us, we were moving. It was okay working the front door. You got to see everybody come in and greet everybody, and I loved greeting everybody. But there's nothing like being in that gym and the music going and just moving to the rhythm. And it's always funny whenever she and I would talk about the band, because they play so well being so small, and we didn't care. We still enjoyed, every instrument, every drum, and we just loved to dance and rhythm. And for those of y'all who saw me doing this when I was dancing, that was in honor of my sister. It's called the finger dance. And I could remember one time when I'd hurt myself, tore an ACL, and I couldn't really dance. She said, "That's okay. We can do something real light." And I said, yeah, like the finger dance. And it actually turned out to be it was a joke, but it turned out to actually be one of our dances. So we would be doing this whenever we would dance, or we would keep it within here. And we would never really gave it a name, but as soon as we started moving it down to the feet, for those of y'all who have had me before and you see me do a little soft shoe, and I just joke around with it, but this is my Aunt Dale who taught us all the soft shoe. We call it doing the Dale. I love my wife, Liz, and I know Michelle loved Patrick. We talked about it all the time. She would always have her phone on speaker, and while she was in her off period, she'd be on the phone with Patrick. And I'd walk in there and I'd be talking, blah, 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 and then she would go, "I'm on the phone with Patrick." And then I would go, "Tell him I said hi." Mark said hi. That was pretty much every day. And then there's the soccer team. I just think all those players who don't get to experience her like I did. She will let you know what she's feeling. If you're doing stupid stuff, she will call you on it. There was a lot of stupid stuff. But we also knew that they were kids. I would always tell her, after coaching for 7 years, Tony Grandinetti had mentioned something to me. Coach Persinger did too, I think. They had mentioned that make sure that you're their coach and not necessarily their friend, although you can act nice to them, of course, but they're your players, they're your students. And it's not necessarily about being their friend. You can act friendly. And I took that to heart. I was 30 when I came here to teach. And so I'd already been coaching for a while in select soccer. And I had already treated my kids that I coached like that. And she and I dealt with them. Yeah, we joked around a lot. But we also kept them in line. And all of the assistant coaches that I've ever had have been either somebody of Bishop Lynch or a player that has played for me, or whatever assistant coach that I had. And Coach Murillo, the last time we won state, it dawned on me that Coach Murillo, Diego Murillo, who used to be a Spanish teacher here, and is here today, Diego was here when we won state in 2010. And Anthony Strick was an assistant coach, and he also graduated from here. And then Coach Murillo and Michelle were they were in the soccer program with me. And then whenever Diego got busy doing his thing with Notre Dame and becoming a vice principal, I started looking around, and then I was very, very, very fortunate to have Chris Vivero come help with the soccer program. And yes, Chris, I am going to tell the story. The first year that I was here, I was teaching world history, and I was a floater. And floaters basically, you got all your books and stuff on a cart, and you take it from room to room because you don't have your own classroom. So here I am, first year teaching, second year here as a soccer coach, and there was about 5 minutes left to go in one particular class, and I asked the class, hey, okay, if there's anything that you want to ask me, this is the time to do it. You've only got 5 minutes, that's it. Coach Vivero raises his hand, and he gets this serious look on his face, and he goes, Coach, did you actually pay the barber to cut your hair in the shape of South America? And of course, when somebody says something like that in my class, I had to laugh. So I laughed a little, and everybody else was dying laughing because they couldn't believe how audacious that was. And so, yeah, I laughed. I thought it was hilarious. And then I said, man, Chris, I said, I'll give you the answer to that question this Saturday during Saturday detention. And Chris just, oh, man. Then the bell rings, and as everybody's walking out, he's like one of the last ones to leave. And I called him over and I said something like, just kidding. And that was my relationship that started with Chris Vivero. And next thing you know, he's back here helping out with the soccer program. And the good thing about it is that Michelle got along with him. And that was huge, because I knew that she had a special relationship with Coach Murillo, just like I did. And I'm not even going to tell you about when Coach Murillo and I first met each other back in 1996 or 97. That'll be for another day. But they got along, and for me, it's huge when my coaching staff gets along. And I told my wife that it's going to be so hard because so many kids don't get to experience Michelle now. And that was one of the biggest things about it. She did all the administrative stuff. She worked with the parents so I wouldn't have more stresses put on my life. She had the parents do the banquet. We would do a parent meeting, and at the end of my spiel, I would always turn to her. Anything else? She would always catch all those little things. She's like my net. She would always catch those other things that needed to be said. And of course, with my ADHD, I didn't remember everything. I could write it all down and still miss it. She was there. I did another workshop this summer. That's what we do. All you kids, all you students and soccer players here, that's what we do. We go to conferences. We make ourselves better for you. Whether it's continuing ed for soccer or it's for teaching or whatever. And I stayed with her for a week, with her and Patrick. because they lived close to where it was happening, and I didn't really want to drive an hour and a half every morning and afternoon to go to this thing, and so they were nice enough to house me for a week. And I enjoyed staying with them. I teach my kids in the classroom Perth. If you ever look on my Facebook page and it says Perth equals love. Patience, understanding, respect, tolerance, and honesty. And when I told her that, she said she was going to borrow it. And I said, you can use anything that I have. In the last 10 years, I've been teaching world history, which was moved to sophomore year. And because of that, she teaches sophomore English, and so we would teach a lot of the same kids. I called it, whenever we had both, whenever a kid would have both of us, I called it the double whammy. You have the double whammy, you get me and you get my sister. And we would tell stories, and they would always, one person would get the story told to them one way from me, and then you get the story told to them in a different way from Michelle, so that they would get the whole truth. Anyway, So I just want to let my players and the students know that I'll be back to my same goofy self after a while, because I know that that's what Michelle would want me to do. Thank you.
Unfortunately, you have me here for a while because I'm not only speaking for myself, but also for my sister after this. Now, taking a look around, not only of the different people here, but of the different ages here from young to old, it shows just how much Miss Dunkins affected people. And chances are nearly everybody here has the same feeling of love and gratitude. When I heard of the news of her passing, I was confused for around a week and didn't know what to do with myself. And in addition, I haven't had a close family loss in my life yet. And it occurred to me that through our bond I had with her, she was more family and a friend than a teacher. And she sought to make friends with everybody, which made her a timeless person in my life. And coming into freshman year, she was the only teacher I knew, only because my sister gave her a bit too much praise, in my opinion. And she was hard to please, so if Miss Dunkins pleased her, I knew there was something up. Although I didn't have her as a teacher freshman year, I saw her consistently coming to practices and watching us, later knowing she was just silently judging us, but nevertheless, it was an act of kindness. In sophomore year, which was the year I really became close to her, I had her in English, and I also visited her room 2 to 3 times every day without fail, either to talk about soccer, school, or just life. She was my teacher, friend, and my daily psychiatrist. She talked more logical sense into me than I could have imagined, and I learned all the spectrums of Miss Dunkins, from her favorite quotes to her aspirations of learning Turkish, all the way into her own life. I formed a bond with her that I've honestly never formed with any other teacher or quite possibly anybody else. Overall, she's inspired me to do amazing things in my own life, and I speak on behalf of all the boys of the soccer team that we're going to win state for you this year. You've become a loved teacher of mine and everybody else, but above all, you've become a loved friend. I will forever miss you, and I'll have someone to look forward to after my own life. Thank you for the great memories and times together. I wouldn't have asked for it any other way. Now, unfortunately, my sister and the rest of my family couldn't be here today as she's being presented for her sorority at Texas Tech. But she emailed me a letter that she wanted me to say for her. She says, "Miss Dunkins was that person you never forget. She was that teacher you always went back to visit. She was brutally honest in the best way and always had your best intentions at heart. I got to know Mrs. Dunkins by obviously being Coach's favorite manager for the boys' soccer team, and she easily became my mother away from home, making sure my skirt was long enough and to give me good life advice. This past season was a growth point for me and Mrs. Dunkins. We got to travel to San Antonio and Waco together, sitting on the bus and making fun of the boys who kept having rap battles in the back of the bus. You truly get to know a person when you're sitting on a charter bus for 5.5 hours with 20 overly hyped soccer players. We sat endless afternoons and nights on the soccer bench cheering on the boys and being freezing cold, but we loved every second of it. I remember sitting by her at the soccer banquet this past year, plotting out the perfect plan to get to the cake first so we could get the piece that had our faces on it. Together, we got to share a victory over Jesuit, a semifinal finish, endless cafe latte Starbucks trips, pregame dinners, long strings of texts figuring out if the boys were practicing at Truett or the football field, and early morning super last-minute quick essay edits. Coach, I will love and miss your sister for the rest of my days. Soccer will never be the same without her, but honestly, I don't want it to be."
How y'all doing? My name is Byron Brown. I'm kind of nervous, as you can see, and I really just want to say that Miss Dunkins, she went out. I'm sorry, hold on. She was an amazing person to have in your life, and she can never be replaced. Cause I remember my first day coming in here, I was kind of scared. I was nervous. I ain't never been in this type of environment before. And I was my 4th period, and so I went up to her after class. I just had to sit with her and talk. Cause I was like, "Ms. Dunkins, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. I'm gonna have to leave, cause I don't know if I can survive here." And she filled me with joy. She told me that I was gonna be able to do it. I was a little discouraged, and I feel like a quitter. But she told me, she said, "Keep your head up, and you're gonna be fine. I'm gonna work with you." And I believed her. And the day I found out that she left us, I went and told my mama. I cried. I cried because I didn't know what to do. She was like my second mother here, and I couldn't do it. So she told me to keep my head up. That's what I'm gonna do. She's still my second mother. She's my favorite teacher, and I'm gonna listen to her, and I'm gonna make her proud. Every time I go out there Friday nights, it's always for her. I love Miss Dunkins. She like my mama too. And everything I do is gonna be for her. So I just wanna say thank you to her beautiful parents for bringing her into this world, because if she wouldn't have been here because of y'all. And without her, I just don't know what to do. So thank you to her parents, to her beautiful family. Thank you.
My name is Anna Osborne. I work here. I'm a salsa teacher, apparently, according to. Michelle and I bonded on sarcasm. We had a lot in common when it came to that. And same sense of humor. And our lunches were particularly special. I know Patrick knows that she loved coming to lunch, especially when Eric Anderley was here. He was another coach, Nestor, and all 4 of us got together. She regretted it right after, because she knew that she was in trouble every time she sat with us. But they were always a lot of fun. Every time I saw Michelle and Mark sitting together at lunch, I would crash their conversations, but they never made me feel like I was crashing anything. The bond between the two of you was noticeable to all of us, and many times was envied by many of us too. She and I started bonding even more because we would compare notes on the way we taught. We'd bounce off ideas on some strategies to keep our kids entertained. And in the last few years, we bonded even more because we became addicted to some series that we were watching and binging on Netflix. And I see you, Patrick, nodding because I would hear you in the background when we would talk to each other on the phone. The last time I spoke to her was Sunday before she passed, and I was giving her a hard time for not keeping up with the series that we were watching because we used to text each other saying, "Did you see what she did? And can you believe what he did?" and feed off of each other's excitement. And I told her I was going to downgrade her as a friend for not keeping up with it because I had no one else to talk to or text. She gave me a hard time because I hadn't seen another show that she was watching. I remember I heard you in the background saying, "What? How is this even possible?" Her interest in shows and how we interpreted it, her latest interest that the student was mentioning about Turkish, she was such an avid linguist at heart. And she was watching this Turkish show, and she loved it so much that she would not wait for the show to be translated online and actually watch it in the original language to try to understand it, and then would get super disappointed and very upset at herself for not knowing the language well enough because she had completely misunderstood the whole thing right afterwards. So we would talk at lunch about it, and she would say, "It's really annoying because you think you know the body language of people and you're interpreting it, and then you just get completely thrown out of whack with what they're saying when you actually read the subtitles." That level of love for language and trying to read people fascinated her and linked us as well. So I wanted to share these moments with you because there's so much more to Michelle than what we know. But obviously the fact that she's impacted so many, the fact that she never had kids meant nothing because she had so many here. And she loved them and treated them like a mother should. So I wanted to leave you with this. Thank you.
This will be brief because unlike most of you, I barely knew Michelle. I met her once, and her father, my good friend Joseph, wants me to tell you about a picnic we had once. He brought Michelle, I brought my wife Isabel, and we went to our mutual favorite place, which was Sunset Bay on White Rock Creek. And we had a picnic. I assume we ate hot dogs. I don't really remember the meal. I don't remember why we picked that particular day, but that was the day I met Michelle. After we had eaten, I don't know how it came to be, Michelle challenged me to a race. Now look on your programs, and that top picture of Michelle is about how old she was when I think this happened. So I made my first mistake when I said, "Yeah, I'll race you." I made my second mistake when we were crouched, ready to start the race, and I looked at her. I looked in her eyes. Now, can you imagine what it would be like to be starting a race and you look over and Usain Bolt is sitting next to you and you look him in the eye? Or another way to think about it is a line from a song that I remember. Are you who you think you are, or what? That was the look in Michelle's eye. Now, you know her. I don't need to tell you who won the race. I met her once. I'll never forget her.
Hi, my name is Ashley Fuentes. I am an alumni. I graduated in 2013. Hi, Coach. One of the biggest memories that I have of Mrs. Dunkins was her teaching me how to write a paper properly. And I was always a stickler for following the rules of how to properly write a paper because I'm a bit of a grammar Nazi. So when she found out that I was a grammar Nazi, that was my biggest mistake. I remember one lesson specifically, I was trying to figure out the difference between affect and effect. And she told me, if you can't tell the difference on when to use affect and effect, just use the word impact. And that's exactly what she did. She impacted my life like no other person had ever done before, both as a teacher and as a motherly figure. And I was a head manager for Coach Melanson in soccer, and so all day, every day, if I needed to find Coach, all I would have to do is ask where Mrs. Dunkins was. So anybody that I saw, I'd be like, where's Mrs. Dunkins? Because I knew if I could find her, I could find him, and I could deal with whatever I need to deal with for the soccer program. It wasn't until that I graduated that I found out that she was not only she did not only impact me as a teacher, but she became my family of choice. Both her and Coach Melanson are my family of choice. And I don't know if you've ever known that, Coach, but you and her were both my parents away from home. So when my sister texted me about her passing, it was the biggest blow that I have ever taken. And I have lost a lot of family in the past, a lot of personal family in the past, but none of them hurt as much as hers did, because not only did I mourn for her and the memories that she left me with, but I also mourned for my coach, because like he said, and as everyone else knows, they did everything together. Even when I would come by after graduation, I would still only have to ask, where's Mrs. Dunkins? And I would be able to quickly find Coach and her, especially if it was lunchtime. They were just chatting away. Unfortunately, I did not get the opportunity to have her as an assistant coach, but at the alumni games, I would see them together, and she was an amazing coach for the boys. And I remember an alumni game last year was the last time I saw her, and when I saw her, I ran to her, and I just tackled her, and I gave her a big old hug, and then that's when she told me blatantly about the chemistry of the soccer team, and she was brutally honest about it, and that's what I really loved about her. And so she will always hold a very special place in my heart, as well as Coach, and I want to thank all of you so much for coming here and supporting her and the family. Thank you.
Hello, I am Mallory Johnson, and as Mr. Melanson said, I was one of the lucky students to have the double whammy, which was the best, and I'm just speaking on behalf of the women's soccer team. As we all know, Mrs. Dunkins was an amazing and beautiful person who touched the lives of many. All of us here today are so blessed to have had someone like her in our lives. The women's soccer team and I will forever be grateful for her contributions to the soccer program here at Bishop Lynch. Mrs. Dunkins, the soccer program won't be the same without you. But we know you will be cheering us on from above. Although she was taken from us early, the memories and laughter we all shared with her will be instilled in our hearts forever. Although we cannot physically see her contagious smile, we know she is living in eternal happiness with our Savior. Some of us lost a friend, a teacher, a coach, a spouse, a sister, and a role model to many. But all of us gained an angel that will be looking down on all of us for the rest of our lives. She was a beautiful person inside and out who will be missed forever, and may she rest in peace. Personally, I will never forget sophomore year. We would all be sitting quietly in class until Mrs. Dunkins would Nerf gun snipe someone from across the room. This is just one of the many examples of her vibrant personality that we all got to know and love. Mrs. Dunkins, you will be truly missed by all of us, and we love you. Thank you.
All right. We represent the National Sarcasm Society on behalf of the Bishop Lynch English Department. As a valued member of both organizations, Michelle demonstrates both a rapier wit with the subtlety of a sledgehammer and a passion for the written word whose influence has touched several generations of Bishop Lynch students.
Department meetings often resemble verbal scrums, where after a few minutes of esoteric dialogue, the hammer drops in the form of extended arms, like she's coaching bowling in slow motion, followed by an under-the-breath expletive directed toward the latest administrative mandate.
It's not that Michelle ever considered going rogue, but she never backed down from advocating for her students. Never.
Michelle believes in the spirit of the policy over the letter of the policy, and it is this spirit we celebrate today. It is this spirit that propelled her to live a life that mattered. Where?
Where what matters is not what she bought, but what she built. And she built the foundation of hundreds of students' love of literature and writing.
Where what matters is not her success, but her significance. And by the turnout today, her significance cannot be understated.
Where what matters is not what she learned, but what she taught. And she taught with a passion and enthusiasm that transcends literature. She taught what it means to be human. This is why students like Worth Gilbert and Blake Kasner, who you heard earlier, would visit her room almost every morning for the past 2 years. This is why Blake Kasner told a few of us in her room last week, "She is my best friend."
For this reason, Michelle always understood what matters is not how many people you know, but how many people will feel a lasting loss when you're gone. Just look around at those who are here because they love her. It's apparent Michelle will remain a significant part of the Bishop Lynch community for generations.
Thank you.
Over the last 16 years, it has not been uncommon for me to visit Michelle's room 3 times a day. Sometimes to share the latest absurdity of the day, sometimes to vent, sometimes just to hide from my students. And because I walked into her room so often, I can tell you truthfully, she was always on the phone with Patrick. During conference periods, during lunch, after school, occasionally I'd make a smart remark, commenting on how cute and adorable they were. Inevitably, she'd laugh and tell me I was jealous. She loved you so much, Patrick. And she told me all the time how lucky she was. But when she wasn't talking to Patrick, we talked about other things. We talked about sophomore English. We taught together for 16 years. We talked about books. We talked about curriculum. We talked about the daily grind of teaching. And I remember several years ago, we became very focused on what it meant to be a good teacher. And given, again, it's an English department thing, I guess, our mutual affection for sarcasm, our comments about good teaching inevitably became a joke in the hallway with Julie, or Bill, or Denise, or Maggie, or Colleen, concerning the latest insanity of our days. For instance, good teachers never had mountains of grading to do at the end of the quarter, but between BL and El Centro, we were always struggling to keep up with grading. And maybe our misery loved the company, but the reality was that good teachers supported each other. And Michelle was always looking out for me. Sorry. Michelle was a great teacher. She would return from conferences so excited about the new books that she had found. Whereas I would choose books that, Michelle hated the books that I chose. The books that Michelle chose were books that the kids loved, that they would actually read, that they were excited about. And though sometimes, her students did make her crazy, it was only because she cared so much about them, about their learning, and about their formation. She wanted them to be the best that they could be. And as you have been hearing, she looked out for them in the classroom, and more importantly, she looked out for them outside the classroom. I was 27 years old when I came to Lynch. I'm sorry, I was 27 when Michelle came to Lynch. She was 28. We talked about the joys of young adulthood, mortgages, car repairs, family. She was here when I met my wife. She listened to me talk about my kids all the time. And if I have one takeaway from Michelle today, it is the fierce love. The fierce love that she had for her family. That I hope my own children can enjoy that same love for their siblings. She loved teaching. She loved coaching with her brother. She loved having lunch with him. Occasionally I would sit down next to her and think she saved me a seat and only realized I'm in Mark's seat. And I'd move down one. But I know she loved it because, again, I talked to her every day and she told me all the time. So I will miss those daily conversations. And I will miss our jokes in the hallway. And I will miss her laughter and her eye rolls and her quick wit. And I will miss my friend. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Staley Mullins, class of 2007. And I had the privilege of having Coach Dunkins as not only a teacher in my sophomore English, but also as my basketball coach. It was her first year of coaching. I was on the freshman B team, and I don't know how she did it. With the help of Coach Becker and Coach Longoria, they took me from being a 6 foot, as Coach Longoria says, a 6 foot 13-year-old who couldn't chew gum and walk at the same time, who would fall down while trying to walk across the basketball court, into someone who actually went on and played college basketball. I wasn't planning on speaking today, so bear with me. There's some people in your lives that you don't realize until you look back that they were mentoring you the entire time, and that they were your mentors, that they shaped you to who you became and who you are now. And I can look back on my time at Bishop Lynch, and Coach Dunkins was one of those mentors. She had this way about her that drew students to her. My friends and I would try to go and talk to her during her free period, and she'd give us about 5 minutes of her time, and then she would do her iconic, now you can leave. I'm gonna lock up the door, thank you, and try to shoo us off. But it was such an amazing privilege to have her. Mr. Dunkins, I remember you watching us in the watching us in the stands, and I didn't know if you were nervous for us or more nervous for Coach Dunkins. And you were cheering, I think you were cheering her on more than you're cheering us on, because she was such an amazing force, and she took, and when I say I couldn't chew gum and walk at the same time, I mean it. I was very uncoordinated, and she gave me the courage and the drive to get better and to grow, and it was such an amazing gift. She was this light that really, for especially my group of friends, we were these awkward girls, and she made us into intelligent women. And even the years after she wasn't my coach and she wasn't my teacher, she would allow us that 5 minutes to catch up with her and give us those little pieces of advice. And I am truly thankful for my time that I had with her, and thankful for everything that she instilled in me and to make me who I am today. And so I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you to Coach Dunkins.
Hi, I'm Maggie Raymond, and I worked with Michelle in the English department. And on Wednesday, as we were all kind of trying to just understand what happened, I found myself a lot of the day going back and reading her Twitter because I could hear her voice again. I could see her as I was reading them, and I realized that she had made me smile again, just thinking about her. So I wanted to share some of the ones and hope that they make you smile too. So a lot of these are exchanges with her students. Me, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Student, bet you can't lead him to water, probably harder than it looks. Me, if you study the words, you should be able to define them. Student, I know what they mean, I just can't define them. Me, what? Me, the quiz is short answer. Student, is there a word bank? And then we have 2 different reactions to her infamous book project. Assigned detailed book project. Student, what are we supposed to do with the book after we read it? Do we draw a picture? Me, what? Student, OMG, so I read my first book. Me, applause. Let's give it up for my book project. I knew someone would read eventually. Student, during reading of Antigone, so were there choruses in real life back then that just broke out into song? And then this last one is a little bit more personal from her, but I know that it's something that she would want shared. My dad doesn't have Twitter, so he won't see this. Doesn't matter. I'm telling everyone else. I love my daddy. He's awesome. Thank you.
Hello, Dunkins and Melanson family. My name's Amanda, and today I'm speaking on behalf of my little sister Katerina and I. Katerina actually only had the opportunity to have Mr. Melanson, but I was a double whammy student, as you call it. I think the way my schedule worked, actually, I had Miss Dunkins 3B and Mr. Melanson 4B. So that was always exciting. And I felt the urge to talk today because I don't know, hearing your remarks today actually made me feel extra lucky that I got the opportunity to sit next to my baby sister throughout this entire ceremony. But something that I always envied about Miss Dunkins was her perspective on life that she always had, and that was to never take anything too seriously, especially for me personally. That's something that I tend to do a lot. And being totally vulnerable this past week when I found out about her passing. A few hours before that, I had gotten the grade to my first ever test in college that I had taken, and I thought it was the end of the world. Miss Longoria, it wasn't journalism. I am so sorry. But that was just, they say there's something special about your first test in college, that it's always pretty rough. And that was just an emotional time for me. And then I had heard about Miss Dunkins, and I was thinking about her a lot, and I was just reminiscing on all those emotions, and I remembered that she had always been someone that never took life too seriously, and I feel like that's a lot easier said than done, especially as we grow and we start to have to put that into practice. But I just want to tell you that I remembered it then, and I will continue to remember it, and I wanted to make sure that I was here to celebrate her life with all of you today. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I am the other half to the story when it came to coaching with Coach Duncan and Coach Melanson. I am the famous salsa Diego Murillo. I got plenty of stories about salsa dancing with Coach, but today's about Michelle. So I guess I'll start off by saying that this morning, as I put these things together, I was gathering my thoughts. I just came upon a quote that said that the true teacher, when encounters real difficulty, doesn't evade the problem, but just digs himself a little deeper and finds a way to dig themselves out of that situation. So as I started to gather my thoughts, I can only imagine the amount of pain that that the Dunkins and Melanson family must be going through, because it's hurting me. So as I dug myself deeper, I realized why this quote is so dead on. As you dig deep into that pain and that hurt, you realize that the reason why you're hurting and the reason why it hurts so much is because you loved them. because they were a big part of your life. Because through that sadness, you start to laugh at the quirky things that happened. So as I was thinking through this, I was getting my clothes ready for the day. I have an indoor game after this. My love for soccer has always been there. I started thinking to myself, what tie do I wear? What shirt do I pick? Should I press it? Do I do it now? Do I do it later? And then I thought, man, Michelle would really love the new me. Or the work in progress. Like Coach Melanson said, she came on board of a staff of a bunch of ADHDers, the coaches and the students, right? So it was just funny this morning that I was, even my soccer uniform, do these socks go with these shorts? Are they both Adidas? Are they both Nike? And I just really started thinking, man, the organization that she brought to our soccer team, the ability to let us focus on those boys, was just amazing. By the time that she did all her work, by the time all the administrative work was done, by the time all the physicals were in, she still had time to come and hang out with us. We thought we had it rough. She really had it rough. I would often hear things from her. Now, mind you, like I said, I was setting up my clothes this morning. I would always walk in, and she would always say things like, geez, could you really starch that shirt anymore? I'm sorry, not today, it rained. Or sometimes I would walk out with my Adidas BO gear and say, is my hair okay? To which she would respond, you look pretty, princess. To understand the banter that went on between us, you would have to understand that, I love that guy right there. And when he told me that's my sister, I said, I love you already. And on the soccer field, I might have even said I love you to Patrick, because he would always hear on the phone 2 or 3 times a game, just keeping up with where Patrick was at, how he was doing, what she could pick up on the way home. And of course, I had to chime in with, I love you, Patrick. Which you might have thought it was her, but it was actually me. So as we continue to think about who she was for us, that's who she was for me as a friend. I think that as a coach, she exemplified exactly the way she treated me, the way she treated her brother to those boys. I think that's why you see the kids that are here today, because of the impact that she played in their lives. So when times were a little rough on the soccer field, she would also, like I said, she brought the discipline, she brought the order. She would always give me a hard time about me not getting out there on time. But then she always had the easiest way of shifting conversation and saying, wow, that Melanson really knows what he's doing out there. When she would say that, she would follow that up with, as you were saying, and before we knew it, halftime came around, and we had no clue what was going on the soccer field. But he was doing a good job, because we were probably winning. At that point, we decided that transition for her into coaching might have been the worst decision, or probably the best decision for us. She was both our distraction and our focus. She allowed us to enjoy being out there as coaches. She allowed us to also be focused on those kids and for the betterment of every single one of those kids. And I would tend to think that after winning that state championship, it turned out to be the best combination of coaches that we had. By the way, we also had a few other playoff berths. We beat Jesuit for the first time, and then I believe we beat them again for the second time last year. That's a pretty good trajectory as a coach. She came and impacted all of that. She was part of that. So in conclusion, when I looked up on Facebook today, just happened to open up this morning, and a TED Talk from Rita Pearson came on. And she's passed away since, but she's an educator. She's a great, amazing leader. And I remember sharing this video with Coach Dunkins because I really thought that this is who I wanted to be as a teacher. Turned full today, I realized that's who she was as a teacher. Rita Pearson tells us about her getting some of the most difficult classes. Sometimes 1 out of 20-something students were at grade reading level. And she would say that she'd walk in and tell the students, well, guys, I'm the best teacher, you're the best students. They put us together to show everyone else how to do it right. Some of them would even say, really? But Coach Dunkins really believed in her students, believed in the program, believed in her brother. And then she would go on to say, and tell her, Rita recounts that she would tell her kids to really repeat a certain mantra. She would tell them to repeat that I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I will be somebody better when I leave. I am powerful, I am strong, and I deserve the education that I get here. You shift people, that is who Michelle Dunkins was. That's what she made her students believe. And most of them would actually say, yeah, that is who I am. You say it plenty of times, you start to believe it. And those of you that had her and are here and have a college degree and are making strides to become something more, you've done right by her. Because Coach Dunkins understood that there must be a balance between caring for her students and teaching them. There's plenty of research as to the best teaching practices and teaching methodologies, but she knew that in caring for the child, we opened up our heart to the human that is suffering, that is triumphant, that is struggling, for them to have a better tomorrow. Thank you.
My daughter came here from public school. I was used to, came time to close the doors, they closed the doors, and the kids would be outside. Well, my daughter said, I don't want public schools anymore. And since my older children all had graduated from another Catholic school here in Allen, I said, well, you got to go to a Catholic school. No, I don't want to have nothing to do with Catholic. There's your pastor or what? I said, you got a choice. Public school, Catholic school. She said, I'll go to Catholic school. Well, when she came here, she told me she could get out at a certain time. And then she called me, she said, Dad, don't come pick me up. I'm going to be late. We need late. She said, yes. I'll call you and let you know. But you call me around 6 o'clock, 6:30, you can pick me up. 6:30? We never had that in the public schools, you know. Well, come to find out,
I would like to thank you all for all the beautiful words. I'm sure the family, that was very just wonderful to hear. I will tell you one thing. When you see students past and present, you see colleagues here at Bishop Lynch all get up and speak of Michelle. There's a lot of things at this school that we do very well. I think the one thing that we are astonishingly great at is love, the love we have for each other. And I think in those words and the impact and legacy that Michelle leaves behind proves that. I had a very wise man when I was a very young coach say one time, well, he said it a lot of times, but it's true, that our job here is to love these kids, and their job is to love each other. And I believe that then, and I believe it now. And after listening to all the testimonials, Michelle loved these kids. They definitely loved her back. I'm going to introduce now to sing for us Michelle's niece, Lexi Melanson.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can fight that fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out and move mountains. We gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves, I'll rise up, in spite of the ache, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move mountains, bring it to its feet and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, in spite of the ache, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. All we need is hope, and for that we have each other, and for that we have each other, and we will rise, we will rise, oh, we will rise, whoa, whoa, we'll rise. And I'll rise up, rise like the day, I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I will rise 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up, rise like the day, we'll rise up, in spite of the ache, we'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again.
Good job. Proud of you. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. We'll now, we're set up for a remembrance video, because what would a celebration of life be without a little video and seeing Michelle in action? So, before I introduce the next speaker, the final speaker, with our closing thoughts and, of course, song, my duties here are finished, are over. But I do want to thank the Melanson and Dunkins family, especially Janet, for asking me to be a small part of this. And then Janet, when I tried to bail out of it because I started freaking out about getting up here and doing this, you convinced me to stay in. You have a gift for that. But thank you for that. Thank you for attending, and for the family again. Thank you for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. I'm going to introduce the final speaker. It's Michelle Longoria. She will give her closing thoughts, and then we'll end with a little song. So thank you. Also, after this, the Celebration of Life will continue in the Student Commons and Bistro. There's a little bit of food, a little bit of drink. So please, the family wants you to stop by, share a story or two, or at least be with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As Paul said, my name's Michelle Longoria. I am the Student Communications Advisor here at BL, so I have a really fun job. I get to do all things with the students in broadcasting and for the yearbook and for journalism. And I'm blessed to be here, and even more blessed to be in the company of someone like Michelle Dunkins. When Michelle first came, I was coaching girls basketball, and she came on board as our freshman B team coach, and I immediately fell in love with her, and I think you can see why. If you just listen to the testimonials here today, there was a million reasons to love Michelle. And I won't go through all of them because I think we already have. When I was asked to do these closing remarks, I started thinking in my head something about Michelle and I, and it's interesting because this theme came out is my family also loves movies, and we will start quoting movies and we'll go back and forth, and Michelle and I had done that a couple of times. And so when I was standing in the hallway and Jill asked me if I would do the closing thoughts, the first thing that came into my head was, how do you solve a problem like Maria? And and I mean that in the most loving of all ways, because Michelle was beautiful, and she was real, and she was genuine, and she was sarcastic, and she was going to tell you the truth. And then the next thing I thought of was, you want the truth, you can't handle the truth. And that was never a statement more true. When you talked to Michelle, she was going to tell you the truth. So I got to see the truth on several sides, not only coaching with her. She was not short on opinion, and she was not short on ideas, which obviously that's a good thing. And then as a colleague and a friend, and then I am the parent of a double whammy child. And quite interestingly, I got a different kind of truth when I sent her an email about something about my son, and her reply was, "You really need to let him talk to me about this." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, I'm going to back off of that one." So, admittedly, helicopter parent at the moment, but Michelle put me in my place, and I appreciated that because that's what she did. She was teaching these kids accountability and responsibility, not just English and literature, but she was teaching them life skills that they needed beyond. And you've heard 16 years of that. And I have a million final thoughts that I could share with you, but I thought a better way to do that, but I forgot. I forgot one story before I go into that. In 2013, the summer, I forget exactly the purpose or the reason, but Mr. Becker, who is in charge of our summer school, came to me and asked me at the last minute if I would teach summer school speech. I'd taught speech before, but summer school, obviously it's a compressed curriculum, so it's done differently. And I think it was a week or two before school was starting, and so I was like finishing up the yearbook and trying to come up with, summer speech curriculum. And Julie McMillan recommended that I ask, because I had gone to Julie, she also taught speech, and she said, Michelle teaches summer speech, you can probably go to her. So I dashed by her room, sneaking through the little cubby, and she was on her way out, and she said, "Come see me tomorrow, we'll talk about it, but yeah, I can help you." The next morning I walked into my classroom, and sitting on my desk was this binder, and it was filled with the summer school curriculum and everything she had set up, copies, and a little note on it that said, "Why reinvent the wheel?" So she gave me that, and it was a lifesaver. So that's what she was. She was giving. That's what she did. What I wanted to say was I have a lot of final thoughts, but I think those final thoughts are best in the mouths of the students she taught. And so when I was going through some of her things to put out here, I ran across an assignment that another teacher does here. Anonymously, she hands out these sheets, and anonymously you answer these questions, and they're about teachers. And so these are anonymous notes, because the students don't sign them, to Michelle. And I think you'll hear a theme. Ms. Dunkins works closely with her students to ensure that they grow as students and people. From teaching English to coaching soccer, she engages with all her students. She keeps a close relationship. She is willing to help with any problems you have and has a positive effect on her students. She gives great advice and tries to shape us into great people. She designs her classes to be fun and engaging, and outside of class, she's available for her students to talk to. She sets an example for them by having us respect her and gives us respect in return. In my opinion, she's the best English teacher. She challenges us out of class too. She knows how to deal with problems. She demonstrates leadership by being unique and holding above and bold above everything. I'm sorry. She engages students by helping the students being very successful outside with soccer and with life, trying to make them great and awesome people. She gives me life help. She is always joyful and high-spirited. And then I knew she also teaches at El Centro, and so I went on ratemyteacher.com, and I found some notes from her college students. She's the bomb. Absolutely love her class. Funnest class ever. I learn and laugh until it hurts. She doesn't just teach, she cares. She is so awesome. She's not just a teacher, but a friend who gives the truth straight out and won't lecture us. So I think you can see there's a common thread in all the things that were said about Michelle today. And last night when I was leaving and I was trying to think of everything I was going to say, I ran across one more thing. And I think it really speaks to what Michelle wanted most, and that was that her kids would be accountable and responsible people, society, citizens. And it's a Christmas card from a student. I didn't get permission to read it, so I won't say the name. But it really, just read the subtext of this. Mrs. Dunkins, I know that sometimes I am more social in class than I should be, but you always have the patience with me. Thank you for being such a cool teacher. I think all of the teachers in this room know at this very moment, if even 1/10 of the people said these things about us, then we would be considered wildly successful. Last night, I went to visit the family at the funeral home, and Patrick was so nice and cordial, and we talked for quite a bit. And I've known Patrick the love of her life, eternal honeymoon stage, which was very annoying for a lot of people. I said, you know, Patrick will do anything. We all just loved her. We would do anything. Just tell us what to do and we'll do it. And he said, you know what you can do? He said, you can make sure those skirts get longer. She talked to me every day about those skirts. And I thought to myself, that's perfect. That's what she would want. She would want us to continue to hold our students to a very high standard and to teach them to be accountable and responsible human beings and citizens. And I think most of all, she would want us to emulate the love that she had for everybody, her family, her friends, and her students, because it was abundant. And now, almost as we started today's celebration, we're going to end today's celebration in another dance and song as we gather and mill and love each other as we leave. But we'd like to close today with something obviously very important to Miss Dunkins, and that is family. So we're going to play We Are Family, and we're going to go enjoy some time together and laugh and love Miss Dunkins as everyone did. Thank you very much for coming.